Bienvenue tous and welcome to Face Off here on France24. I'm Marco in Paris. A year from now, Beijing will be a showcase for the new China. The Olympics will be underway. The focus of the world will be on China for a whole month. But what will be revealed? Will it be sporting glory, or will it be a case of China's past and its practices catching up with it? Already human rights groups are drawing attention to China's poor record on justice. Certain politicians have even called for an Olympic boycott. So where does this leave China, and where does it leave the Olympic ideal? Both perhaps in a kind of uncertain state. Well, today's face-off is China, the Olympic situation, the Olympic crisis, as you see there. Here to discuss this, we have two people who know the situation inside out, if you like. From China, the Paris correspondent of Phoenix TV is Yi Liu. Thank you very much for joining us here on Face-Off.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you very much. Facing off with Yi is Pierre Haskey, a man who's basically followed China's political and economic evolution over the past decade, if not longer. Pierre, thank you very much for being here on Face Off.
Hello.
So there we go. It's a big time for your country, E.
Yeah,
but obviously, there are certain questions constantly being asked about China's past and China's current practices. So, what do you think the Olympics are going to bring to China? A really positive spotlight? Or maybe sort of things that highlight the negatives about China?
Well, for the Chinese people, Olympic game is something huge, historic. And I still remember Phoenix TV, we made the live broadcasting for the moment, the magic moment for all the Chinese 6 years ago, the night in Moscow when Beijing was announced by Mr. Juan Antonio Samaranch. That's something, I was in China at that moment, and I remember no people slept that night. They will all stay in front of the television waiting for the news. That's something I can say as Chinese, huge for China. And people were looking forward something to be able to put China, get some progress, as we say, we can say in the side of finance, economy, which is important, and the other side to make China open itself.
Obviously, China's sporting prowess has emerged over the past decade. Obviously, China's economy, Pierre, going from strength to strength to strength. But do you think the Olympics belongs in China?
I was also in Beijing that night when it was announced, and it's true that there was an immense joy and very spontaneous. So this is true, and people there are very attached to this idea of getting the Olympics at home, because it means the return of China to the world scene and in the center of the world. It's the empire of the middle. What was also said that day were some promises made by China about opening, about changing, about the environment too. You know, it's not only a question of economy and human rights, there's also the planet at stake. And a lot of these promises were not kept. And it's true that economically China has boomed. These past 6 years since the Olympics were announced have been a booming time for the Chinese economy. But it's not at all been a booming time for human rights, for press freedom, for the right to associate and to express yourself. It's not been a booming time for the environment as well. And these are the forgotten promises of that day. And there is a big ambiguity about the Olympic movement's commitment to stage the Olympics in Beijing, because it's a reward. You know, you don't. Why were the Olympics refused the first time to Beijing? Because the world felt that China was not ready to welcome the world in a way. What has changed and what's remaining to be done in China? That's the big question.
Are you saying then that China, in your opinion, is still not ready to host an Olympics?
China is definitely ready to host the Olympics in many respects. The infrastructure is going to be great, the staging is going to be perfect, but China had made promises to the world, not in print, but you don't get the world to give you the Olympics without some commitments, and these commitments were not kept, and that's the big question mark on the Olympic of next year.
Okay. It was Ségolène Royal during the presidential campaign here who actually made a call for China's Olympics to be boycotted because of China's stance on, I think it was Darfur. The fact that China's trading with Sudan, and obviously a lot of the money and the arms that are supplied are going to fund the war or the conflict in Darfur.
Yeah, I still remember the night of the famous television debate. They didn't talk a lot about the international topics, but China was one of the topics they mentioned, though they mentioned a few. And I remember Ségolène Royal, Madame Royal, she was saying, well, we have to boycott the GO in Beijing to give the pressure to the Chinese government for certain topics, such as Darfur. And Sarkozy, he replied him immediately, well, if you want to boycott the Olympic Games in Beijing, why you didn't boycott your visit in China? As we know, she chose China as her first visit in foreign countries in the year of 2007. So boycott or not the Chinese GO, that's something we can talk apart as a politic subjects, or especially during the election. That's we can say it's a method of the politic people. But at the same time, as we say, boycott the GO. You know, the Olympic esprit is one of the essential esprit of Olympic is we separate the politics with the sports. And personally, I think, well, if we boycott the Olympic Games in Beijing, who sacrificed the most? It's not the Chinese government. That will be all the sportsmen in France or in some other countries who had dedicated their years to be able to participate these sports games, international sports games.
I see the case, because obviously that's the parallel with the Moscow Olympics, which were boycotted by the West in 1980, when obviously the American athletes didn't turn up. And for we as British people, it was great because we won more medals. So we were we weren't very, very happy, but obviously there was a positive there for us. However, I hear what you're saying. It's the athletes who get punished, so therefore that shouldn't happen. But still, in terms of human rights, you haven't made any progress.
Well, first, it's not me. I'm a Chinese journalist in France.
I'm sorry.
I'm not. No, it's okay.
I'm not
anyway,
Chinese
government since since '89, since the Tiananmen Square issue, they are used to be critical by the whole world about the human rights. But something is for me, as a Chinese journalist, they are singing a song right now in China as the theme song for 1 year before the Olympic Games, called "We Are Ready." But for us, if we don't get the chance to hold the Olympic Games, we will never be ready. That's a chance to force the government to open itself. They have to welcome millions of journalists. At the same time in Beijing, they have to show China. They have to open themselves one day.
So the Olympics, Pierre, as a catalyst to make it happen, to make the change happen.
It hasn't happened. It's been 6 years already, and the government changed the regulation for foreign journalists during the Olympic Games. They will be free to move around, and a lot of the restrictions that were in place when I was a correspondent in Beijing have disappeared for the period of the Olympics. But I had a Chinese friend, a journalist, who sent me an email from Beijing, and he said, why does it only apply to Western journalists and not to Chinese journalists? Because the restrictions that are on the Chinese media will still be on. And not only that, but they have been reinforced. There's a lot of control for two reasons. One is the party congress, the Communist Party Congress later this year. And secondly is the Olympic Games, where the government is very tense because it's very nervous because it doesn't want things to get out of control. So the Chinese media are enduring a lot of restrictions that have been lifted for the foreign journalists. So this situation is a big contradiction, and I think China will have to live with it, of course, but I don't believe that the Olympics will help the cause of freedom in China. I don't believe either that boycott is a solution.
Let's put that question about press freedom, media freedom to E. I mean, do you feel that you work in an atmosphere where people are controlling what you say?
Well, I don't think I'm the person who have should speak here because I'm a Chinese journalist working in Europe. But for me, I know if I chose a topic, if I made a report, I don't have to ask my headquarters in Hong Kong, should I do it or not? I have the totally freedom.
You get the choice to do that.
But I don't think
it's a Hong Kong-based television,
so I don't
which
know.
is a different case.
At the same time, for the French journalist, I don't think you could do the same thing as I'm doing. That is, instead of giving reports of what kind of topic I'm making, I could just go for it. I don't know. I don't think that's the same case for the French journalists.
What you're saying, French journalists have as many restrictions as China?
Yeah,
I mean, you've got to answer that question.
we know. I have a friend who's a French journalist in China.
Let him answer that question.
She's a little bit sad because every time when she wants to make something positive of China, the topic will be refused because that will not
all right, interesting point. Interesting
to
point.
The audience.
You're just saying the West are looking for negatives on China.
Yeah, the truth is that we are also enduring economic or social or political pressure in the Western media. Of course, no one is free anywhere in the world. We're not in a bubble. But I think the Chinese media at the moment are enduring the worst of all systems because they are through political control of a very tight nature that doesn't exist anywhere else, at least in Europe. That every day editors of Chinese newspapers get what should be said and what should not be said in their newspapers. When the president makes a speech, the editor receives the headline, the picture, the size of the picture, and which text and comments have to be published. So that cannot be compared with the kind of environment we have here. But of course, press groups in France, for example, exercise control on their publications. There's been recently controversy about Murdoch taking over the Wall Street Journal. I mean, there's a lot of issues at stake in the Western media, but it's not exactly the same as political control as the way it exists.
I'm from a city called Liverpool, when the people from Liverpool tend to sort of take control of everything and have freedom anyway and do what they want. And what I'm going to do is take more time because my producers told me to finish, but I can't until I've asked you, do you think the Olympics on all levels in Beijing will be a success?
I hope so. We will see. There's one thing I could say that I have confidence is about the pollution thing because, I come from Beijing. I remember once if you could have some blue sky in Beijing, the Beijing people, they take their camera.
Are you saying it's
they
getting
take
better?
pictures.
You're saying it's getting better?
No. I'm saying that it's really a huge problem in Beijing, the pollution. But I heard about last year during the summit all the presidents, American in Beijing, the Chinese government asked all the government cars to stop.
We've got to do the news. I've got to end it there. I'm really, really sorry, Pierre. Thank you very much, Thank you for joining us. You're watching Face Off on France 24-EN. Thank you for joining us.